Morning, everyone. Lots going on, and I saw this yesterday, and it was published on June 9th. Today is the 11th, so it took me a few days to catch up to this, but I think this is very worthwhile. This is a constitutional challenge, a charter challenge, looking at the mandatory masking. He talks about mandatory vaccines if a vaccine becomes available. He talks about there's a lot. There's two main pieces where he kind of summarizes 10 minutes and 30 seconds and then 12 minutes and 45 seconds. I'm going to play this one, and I might jump to the other one too, but we'll see if this one covers most of what I want you to see. It's worthwhile. Your rights are rights, and no pandemic should be able to take away those rights just for a little while, especially when you look at the numbers with regards to, like, here's the BC numbers, right? So maybe you can't see that. Hold on. There we go. So the total number of cases is just under 3,000. Total number recovering, just over 2,500. Total number of deaths and active cases is under 250, it looks like. How can you justify the removal of rights for these numbers? Safety, freedom is not safe. You can make your own call based on all of the available information, right? I don't know. Here's the lawyer. Here we go.
The statement of claim sets out very clearly that the avalanche of the scientific and medical evidence is that, one, masking has never been effective, does not do anything to stop an airborne aerosol virus. Number two, in reducing the oxygen intake between 10 and 15%, actually does severe harm, ranging for constant headaches to actual heart attacks with the elderly and the infirm. Secondly, social distancing is not a scientific nor medical concept. It's never been used. The only place that we see social distancing was created by the CIA as an interrogation and torture technique, which is still employed in Guantanamo Bay, to keep people apart, because we are essentially a social creature as human beings. So the limiting of gatherings is also not scientific. This was admitted by the BC Chief Medical Health Officer, Bonnie Henry, early on in this pandemic. So what we have is, we have a policy that's brought in by governments who are, one, unwilling and absolutely refuse to disclose what the source of their medical advice is and from whom they are getting this advice. Secondly, they absolutely refuse to acknowledge or respond to the over 4 dozen world and Canadian medical experts who have said that these measures are bogus. And furthermore, CBC, as a national broadcaster, has refused to give any airtime to these contrary valid criticisms and opposition. Last week, the New York Times published an article pursuant to a report signed and forwarded to the WHO by 239 world experts from 32 countries, setting out what my clients allege in their statement of claim with respect to the measures. So the government has essentially said, we're shutting Parliament. 2, you're going to do what we tell you, even though we're infringing your constitutional rights, and we're not going to tell you the substance of the advice we've gotten, nor from whom. This, under the Constitution, is completely unacceptable, and we're going to take the governments to task in a court of law based on an assessment of the scientific and medical evidence.
And we'll leave it there. I know it was long, and I understand that 3 minutes of kind of dry legal stuff to start the show is a really good way to get lots of viewers. But this is important stuff, and you'll see at the bottom here, this is the City of Toronto, the Government of Ontario and Canada, and he's going after the municipality bylaws and the statement 20, this use of section 22 by the public health officials to, and it doesn't matter if he can get it in one, the rest will fall, because that's precedent setting. You don't need to relitigate each one, right? So it's interesting this is happening. What's more interesting as well is there's not much press about this, right? Even I watched it, and the beginning of the videos got no sound and it's kind of unorganized, hard to watch, right? And it's like people turned it off. I was like, oh well, there's no sound. I'm not gonna waste my time. And then thankfully I don't know if somebody clipped it or whatever, but I got into the meat of it, and I mean I clicked around looking for sound. Obviously, I didn't just turn it off, but I got into the meat of it and realized how important this was, and it's notable that the media is not talking about this much. No, they're not. Moving on. I hope that, okay, moving back really quickly, I hope that something comes of this and it's not just completely ignored, right? I fear that it will be completely ignored. I fear that there will be, there's other legal situations that have had valid legal base and did all the right things. I'm talking of Norman Traversy, and magically and accidentally or whatever, some records got missed or lost, or some timing got miscommunicated, or something happened and nothing happened. You see? So I'm hopeful that something will come of this, but who knows? Precedent or recent experience tells me that maybe not, but I hope I'm wrong. Jagmeet Singh has responded to the chief of police. His name is Chief Steve Tanner, and he says, this tweet from an account described as the HRPS Chief of Police site leaves me concerned for the people of Halton Region. It lays bare the fragility of someone in a position of power afraid to confront systemic racism. Wow, all of those are right out of critical race theory, right? And all of those terms, the fragility, position of power, systemic racism, those are all right out of critical race theory. I'm reading How to Be an Anti-Racist right now. And these are my notes. This is chapter 1, right? The definitions usually define something. You can't define fork as fork. The definition of fork is fork, right? However, the definition of anti-racist here is one who is supporting an anti-racist policy through their actions or expressing an anti-racist idea. Oh, that's really clear as mud. Thank you. Anyway, the chief responds to Mr. Singh, right? And Mr. Singh's dog whistle of all of that critical race theory. He says, sir, you are so wrong. I completely respect you as a person, and we both deplore all forms of racism and discrimination. I hated seeing what you went through in the last election. You're in a position of power, and your comments about the RCMP and the Rideau Hall incident were unfair. There is one world, and there is only one human race. There's no room for racism or for comments that inflame an already tense situation. Frontline police officers deserve respect also, and when they do things to lose public respect, there needs to be discipline and sanctions. This chief of police, I think, is well-meaning. He doesn't understand the culture war we're in. He doesn't understand what he's engaged in here, I don't think. And maybe he does, but this is like me 6 to 8 months ago believing that you could engage politically and get somewhere with somebody, and that is just not true right now. It is not true. Jagmeet Singh is not interested in finding some workable middle ground, saying that police are legitimate and that police are doing a good job and etc. Like this chief of police, and again, I think he's well-meaning, doesn't understand the salvo that's happening right now. The attack the attack on police, the attack on the West, the culture war, essentially. And if you don't see it, if you think that you can get the people who believe in critical race theory and the people who believe in these very, very radical theories and beliefs to see your middle ground, and you're wanting everyone to be equal in the eyes of the law and everyone to have the same opportunity, but you can't ensure the same outcome, right? If you want somebody to see that kind of reason on this medium in 2020, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen, and that's the unfortunate truth. Okay, it's taken me 10 minutes to get to the big story, and I thought those were going to be two quick little tabs. All right, anyway. Bill Morneau and the whole liberal machine has ties to we. This looks like a much bigger scandal than when it started, and I bet they're very happy it's happening in the middle of summer. But this is a huge scandal. From Bill Morneau to Catherine McKenna, there's appearances. Morneau's got kids who are working for we. And it's wild. It's wild. Here's Canada Land. I've been highlighting these guys for the last couple of days. They're doing the work. I don't know. I think we burned them and they're just ready to get back at them. It's crazy. So here's Canada Land breaking this story on July 10th. And I think I've already said it's the 11th, but it's July 11th. Finance Minister Bill Morneau also has ties to We Charity. And I don't go through this one. I want to show you these two things here. Global News, Trudeau admits he did not recuse himself from We contract vote. That's on July 8th. And yesterday, Morneau didn't recuse himself from decisions on We contract despite daughter's connections to charity. And I wanted to show you this one because the CTV or the CBC article that I'm going to use doesn't use the word recuse, which is like a standard legal term for saying I have a conflict here. I'm going to not put my hat in the ring, in my opinion shouldn't be considered by the professionals around the table because I have a conflict of interest. My daughter works there. My family makes money from appearances there. I appear there regularly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But instead of recusing and instead of the CBC using the words that everybody knows what they mean, this is CBC's headline. Bill Morneau has family ties to We Charity, did not steer clear of cabinet discussion of contract. Steer clear? Why would he steer clear, CBC? What possible reason could he have to steer clear? Is that a political term? Do people use that in Ottawa? CBC being very highbrow? Okay, back to this. Finance Minister Bill Morneau did not recuse himself from the Liberal Cabinet's consideration of a $19.5 million contract for We Charity. 19.5. It was a $912 million contract with 19.5 being the administrative side for We. This is just lies, maybe? I don't know. Contract for We, despite the involvement of two of his immediate family members in the charity, one of them as a paid contract employee. Grace Asen, who was born in Uganda but joined Morneau's family as a teenager in 2010 when she was sponsored to come to Canada, has been a paid employee of the charity's travel department since 2019. The website Canada Land reported on Morneau's familial ties to the We Charity on Friday morning. The minister's office says Asen's role is strictly administrative and her term contract ends on August 31st. She joined the We organization as an employee after working previously as an intern during her undergraduate studies in community development. Quote, like millions of Canadians, Grace Asen has been gaining valuable work experience in the charitable sector, Morneau spokesperson Pierre Oliver Herbert told CBC News earlier this week in response to a question about whether her employment had anything to do with the charity's contract to administer the $900 million Canada Student Service Grant. Morneau's other daughter, Claire, also has been involved with the We Charity, particularly following the publication of her book, Kakuma Girls, which shares the stories of African schoolgirls in a refugee camp in Kenya. During her secondary school studies at Havergal College, Claire Morneau started a pen pal program between her school and an all-girls school that her father's company, Morneau Chappelle, supported inside the camp. Since then, she's been engaged as a speaker to talk about this education partnership and addressed the charity's We Day events where thousands of students gather to hear motivational speeches promoting civic engagement. Morneau's office said Claire Morneau has done this work strictly as a volunteer and has never been paid. Never been paid. Okay. Maybe never been paid by We. Well, I think the jury's probably out on that. They said the Trudeaus were never paid, and they were. Whoops, couldn't believe that. But this is interesting. She wrote a book called Kakuma Girls after her dad helped her set up a pen pal in a refugee camp that her dad's company, Morneau Chappelle, supports inside the camp. This reminds me of like those articles you see sometimes when like a 6-year-old starts a cookie business and the dad's on Ellen with the kid saying, "Oh, he just said we wanted to start selling cookies, so we made the cookies and we're giving half to charity or whatever." This is dad's business, you understand, right? Like it's not the kid doing this, right? And I'm not necessarily saying that about Claire Morneau here, but it seems really there's maybe some elbow grease that dad put in there to help out with the connections, right? As her dad's company supports the camp, right? Or supports the community inside the camp, and then she gets to go and have a full spread in the Toronto Star in October of 2016, talking about her book, The Kakuma Girls, right? I mean, you don't get paid, but you get a platform at We to tell your unbelievably, selfless story of helping these people. But, you leave out all the details, the phone calls at night, who did all that work. You leave out all those details, right? But, You get the platform, you get the newspaper article. Did you get paid? No, you didn't get paid. That's crazy. Here's a newspaper article that, and there's promotional pictures and Twitter pictures and all sorts of stuff, right? Here's Peter MacKay. On another note, this is all related to we, and I just thought this was kind of funny. Peter MacKay feels the heat is enough to delete his tweet. The post-millennial is talking about this. Peter MacKay deletes tweet praising we charity after wife spoke at event. Right? Here's So, libcons. I was talking with my dad yesterday, and he said, "Oh, I'd vote for Sloan." He said, and I said, "I don't know. They're all kind of the same in the Conservative Party." And he said, "Well, Leslyn Lewis isn't the same." I said, I don't know. I don't know about Leslyn Lewis. Maybe she's not the same. I've seen some concerning things about the UN and posts from her about the UN. But then I said, it's probably just going to be Peter MacKay. Like, they're going to have their election, and then they'll just say, here's the leader. It's Peter MacKay. Oh, my God. I know he was so behind. And then all of a sudden, everybody was like, yeah, Peter MacKay. Like, that's what I think is going to happen. I can't imagine O'Toole doing it. I can't imagine Sloan winning it because the CPC doesn't want him. I can't imagine Leslyn Lewis winning it, although I think she'd probably do just fine. But I don't think the Conservative machine wants any of those candidates. I think they want O'Toole or MacKay being the preferable one, and O'Toole being the okay, fine. And I don't know that either of those people beat Trudeau. And do we have I've heard rumors of a fall election. I have no idea. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? I mean, I think that every single party, the NDP are broke. The Bloc is maybe in an okay position for an election. The Conservative Party is leaderless at this point in time, although a leader puts on a different face in the party, and they might be ready for an election. Their war chest is certainly probably okay, at least. You need about 40 million to run a viable Canadian election. 20 million for the leader, national, 20 million for the down ticket campaigns, 5 or 6, 10 to 12, cabinet ministers or whatever, right? Like high profile people get advertisements. That's just a rough estimate, right? And People's Party doesn't have a constitution, doesn't have a lot of momentum right now. There's nothing really going on. And I'm saying that as somebody who's involved. So yeah, a fall election, majority Liberal, and maybe it's Freeland in the leader's seat. But Peter MacKay, I think it'll be Peter MacKay. Who knows? But that's my prediction at this point in time. I don't see any major players making any kind of moves. I don't see any reason to believe that the Conservative Party is on track to have Sloan lead them or a candidate like Leslyn Lewis. It's going to be the same old, divisive crap. It'll be about racism and we supported you through the curb, and then winning an election validates it. Like validates all the spending and all the debt and all this other stuff because they won the election, right? That's what happens. That's another reason why maybe there's some validity to this. It's risky for Trudeau. If he loses, then he loses, right? But if he wins, then he has legitimacy to continue the spending, etc. Now he doesn't need that, so it's risky. So there's an argument to be made that no election in the fall either. But I've seen rumblings, I've seen rumors. Okay, Robin Urbeck, she says, just perusing some old social media. Here's Catherine McKenna. She says, join us Monday, September 17th, as students from around Canada speak with Minister Catherine McKenna regarding our oceans health, single-use plastics, and Canada's G7's presidency. And here's Trudeau taking over the We, you can't see that because I'm up there, taking over the We Twitter account. Hi, this is Justin Trudeau. I'm taking over the account today, blah, blah, blah. We're so excited Justin Trudeau is bringing gender equality to Canada's parliament. Yeah, right. Very interesting to go through that. Here is Pierre Poilievre asking if anybody from the PMO talked to anybody at We about their $900 million program. And the answer is always, they're not going to answer because that's not what they do. They don't answer questions they don't like. Here we go.
So again, yes or no, did anyone in the PMO talk with anyone at We about this contract before it was awarded? Yes or no?
Honorable Minister.
As has clearly been stated, the public service made a recommendation for We Charity to advance this program. We accepted their recommendation.
And they are going to use cabinet confidentiality to never talk about this again. I promise. Here is Navdeep Bains. This is 30 seconds. And this is Lisa Raitt. Lisa Raitt is the old assistant or vice leader, secondary leader, oh my goodness, deputy leader, that's it, of the Conservative Party federally. She lost her seat in the last election. And she says, the minister signs the memorandum to cabinet after discussing the advice at length with officials before signing off. The decision is made by the minister and the accountability is with the minister, period. We are the ones given the title honorable for life, and we are the ones that are members of Her Majesty's Privy Council, not the public service. Own the decision. Deflecting on those who cannot defend themselves in the press, bound by confidentiality, is unfair. And I'm saying that they are going to use cabinet confidentiality to never, ever talk about this again. Here's Navdeep Bains building my case.
Any discussions that take place in cabinet, as you're fully aware of, are subject to cabinet confidentiality. As the Prime Minister has mentioned, as Minister Chagger has mentioned, that the non-partisan advice that we received from the public service was to recommend this particular project. We decided to go with that project, but in light of the current circumstances, we are now going in a different direction. And we are absolutely committed to supporting young people and students in particular, and will continue to find a way in this crisis to make sure young people get the support that they need. Any discussion?
So, not telling, we can't talk about what we knew. We can't talk about any of those things. The public bureaucrats told us that this is their recommendation and we went with it, and now we're going with a different direction. But we can't tell you what we knew and when we knew it because of cabinet confidentiality. Here is a similar line of questioning, power and politics, and this is the question is, were you aware that the Prime Minister's mother and brother had been paid for appearances by the WE charity when the decision to award the student grant contract was made by Cabinet? I can't get into conversations that occur in Cabinet, said Rodriguez. And Pablo Rodriguez is what is being described as a Quebec lieutenant for Trudeau, like somebody who's helping manage running that province in a way that Trudeau wants. So here's a quick, this whole minute and 40 seconds is worthwhile because he's slippery. He's as good as Mendocino. He talks about, if you get a question that you don't want to answer, you flip the question so you get to speak about your talking points. And their talking points is targeted at youth. We helped you. We spent money on you, right? And because we spent money on you, now we're under political fire. So we're not going to tell you the answer to these questions. I can't talk about what I knew and when I knew it because of cabinet confidence. That's what's happening here. That's the play. Watch here.
And were other ministers aware that the Prime Minister's mother and brother had been paid for appearances on WE's behalf when this decision to award the contract was taken by Cabinet?
Well, I can't get into conversations that occur in Cabinet. What I can tell you is, as a government, we made lots of decisions in this COVID context to help Canadians, and we said it from the start. You know, we chose to move fast because it was necessary, and knowing that it wouldn't be perfect all the time, and make corrections along the way. And this is one of the cases.
I'm not asking you to disclose cabinet conversations or anything like that. I'm asking you if you knew that Margaret Trudeau and Sacha Trudeau had been paid money by We when you decided to enter in this arrangement.
Well, I don't know We much. It's not an organization that is well known.
Did you know that they were paid by We, blah, blah, blah? Oh, I don't know We much. I don't know that charity very much. I don't know much about that. They're not popular in Quebec. You see how they walk away? Like, it's just like, here's the question. Oh, well, I don't know We. They're not very popular in Quebec, don't you know? I can't talk about cabinet confidentiality. Here is Miss Walsh, and she's a Globe and Mail reporter, and she says the Globe has contacted every cabinet minister to ask if they were made aware of the payments to Mr. Trudeau's family when they awarded We the contract. None of their spokespeople replied. They're not going to. They're not going to. We don't answer questions we don't like. Sorry, Liberal Government of Canada. We don't answer questions we don't like. The Conservative Party calls for a criminal investigation into Justin Trudeau over We charity. Do you think that the RCMP is going to do anything about this? I really have a hard time believing that they're going to. Just like the Toronto police are going to investigate John Tory, right? Sorry. Like, oh, we investigated him. He's clean. So what do you want us to do now? Honestly, There's lots of situations like this where if you make a complaint and then you get back, oh, we hear you and we understand that, there's a problem here. Thanks for pointing it out. And then you say, okay, so, about that complaint, what's the movement on that? What's the next steps on that? And they look at you like, Oh, like you want to still do that? Like we heard your complaint and we'll change, but you want to pursue the formal thing? Oh, okay. So I think that this is going to be an exercise in futility. I think that the only way to beat this government is to bring it down. And like, man, and I understand that calls an election and all of those things. And I think that the other parties are in terrible disarray. So I don't know, maybe we get a new leader, but the new leader will be the same as the old leader, right? Doing exactly the same thing. The policies will be the same. So it's all globalist, right? So what's the pathway here? I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's one card you can play, and it's one that can play out in the press, et cetera, et cetera. And people will say, oh, well, like, you know, you get that struggle session of a week long. Is there racism in the RCMP? No, yes. And then now it's like, well, is there criminality in giving $900 million of taxpayer dollars to a charity that then pays your mother and your brother $350 million or $350,000? Not million, thousand. Right? And even though the number 900 million is a lot bigger than the 300,000 that was given to the family of Justin Trudeau, there's other concerns. There's platforms being given to liberal politicians. There's jobs being given to family members of high-placed liberal politicians. There's book deals that are being given airtime on media that are being paid by Justin Trudeau for the media bailout, et cetera. Like there's a lot wrong with what's going on in our politics in Canada right now, and it doesn't seem like there's any will to change any of it. It seems like they look at this complaint of very clear systemic rot, and they like to use the word systemic racism, right? Systemic. You can't even see it. It's so systemic. And you know what we can see? We can see this corruption. We can see this rot. It's really freaking clear. It's right there. And nobody's doing anything about it. Oh, wow, we'd love to solve this problem. We'll just file it right here, right next to the trash can. Bye, we'll see you later. Into the trash can it goes, right? And it just seems like nobody's willing to fix any problems, not real problems. If they can find racism in it, right? I'm surprised this isn't workers of color affected by Phoenix Pay will get $350 million in compensation, right? Like I'm surprised we're not at that level yet, because it's close. It's close. There's places, there are institutions that are very comfortable having black brilliance and anti-black racism subcommittees, but will get very uncomfortable when you ask them when other racialized groups get their subcommittees, anti-Asian or anti-Native or anti-brown or anti-white racism. Do they get subcommittees too? No. White brilliance or brown brilliance or Native brilliance groups supported? No. Why not? Is that not equality? Is that not the same? Is that not offering the same opportunities to everybody? Why not? Why do you need to make it about race? I'm surprised that it's not in the news now too. It's so frustrating. I've already talked about this one. This is the cost, and this is the last story. I'm at 28 minutes. Oh my goodness. Stunning figure. COVID furloughs of federal employees cost $439 million. $439 million. So the federal employees who were laid off were paid their full salaries. And Blacklock's reporter is reporting on it because they feel that Canadian taxpayers have the right to know it. I agree. It's a lot of money. And is that the best use to not demand work, but to give full pay when there's businesses that are being completely decimated by the financial situation created by the government's reaction to the COVID-19 situation? And it wasn't COVID-19 that created this situation. It was the government's response to it, right? Look up the 2009 H1N1 flu and look how many people that infected and how many people it killed. And there was no shutdown of anything. It's a very interesting situation. The world is a very interesting place. I had my garage door open. That's why somebody rolled on by right at the end of the show. Crazy. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And it's the weekend. Have a wonderful, wonderful